this presentation is just going to tell a quick story. So we're going to present Vinted for those of you who don't know what it is. We're going to talk a little bit about Vinted Go, which is a different thing from Vinted. And we're going to basically explain how they're using smart lockers, how they're leveraging that to create a better user experience, better service for their marketplace users. And we're going to tell a little bit of the story of how Bloq.it also helped building this project. So, yeah. Joining me today is Arnoldas.
I can do that bit, I guess.
Yeah.
You hear me as well? All right, cool. So yeah, my name is Arnoldas. I'm part of Vinted and part of Vinted Go.
Yeah.
So I was the guy that reached out to João, I guess, at some point to start talking about lockers. So essentially, my job at Vinted is at least it was at some point at the beginning, to find a way how we can start building our own network and figure out how to what kind of lockers do we need, where do we deploy them, how the heck we make sure it's full of items and so on. So it was an interesting thing, and still something that I'm very heavily involved with the company.
I mean, it's very humble, but actually was the brain behind the whole operation. It was doing everything. So anyway, we're gonna show a quick video. That's us again. Yeah, that's our presentation. Maybe we should have done this before. So here's a short video we prepared about our partnership. This has been by far one of the fastest deployments of smart lockers ever. My name is João Lopes, and I'm one of the founders and COO at Bloq.it. I would say the project has like two main phases, right? So the first one is sort of like this pilot phase where you're trying to prove the concept, you're trying to get the locker out there, make the first initial product, the first initial MVP, start to get some early adopters, place the lockers. And that's sort of what we did for the last maybe 3-4 months, ever since we started working together. We were still figuring out the product very much, figuring out the flows, getting all the operations for Vinted side. Vinted Go is like getting these operations rolling. And now it seems like it's a breaking point because things are getting a lot more structured, products are much more stable, and simultaneously we're very much looking at how we can scale, which is the next phase. The phase 3 would be like scaling. So this is like this turning point where we're going from being an initial phase or a pilot, and we're starting to actually prove that we can scale not only operations, locker deployment, locker production, usage.
Each and every Parisian, and hopefully in the future French person, can then easily access their locker, their parcels from the lockers that we deploy. Hi, I'm Yasser Siddiqui, Operations Director for Bloq.it. I'm responsible for operations in Paris and France. So a lot of the operations is about coordination, planning, and data. And of course, when it talks about coordination, it's about both on fields and off field. So if you think about the process, locker is big, it's massive, it's heavy. So there's a lot of logistics that's required in lockers from our manufacturers to France, and then from our warehouses to the point of deployment, making sure that our location partners for Vinted are very happy with the way that we deploy and install the lockers. That's part of my responsibility, is to ensure that our operations are scalable so we can deploy lockers all over Paris and all over other cities in France, and make sure that they're always operational so we can provide an excellent availability and excellent experience for the clients of it.
And so yeah, we're looking forward. We're very confident about scaling towards next year, and I'm very curious to see how the vLocker network evolves in France and all across the world. And yeah, we're very excited.
Oh, it's applause.
Yeah. If you guys enjoy that. So we're gonna dial it a little bit. And
all right, so to start with, I'm going to explain you a bit more in detail what Vinted is. I'm not sure if everybody is aware. So if you're aware, just say it out. If you're not, then listen. So Vinted is a C2C marketplace platform. We're launched in Lithuania, I think 15 years ago, something like that, and we started growing quite heavily since 2016. So currently we're active in 19 markets across Europe and the Americas, and we are by far the largest secondhand fashion marketplace for users across Europe. And our proposition essentially is very simple. We are a system, a marketplace, a platform where people can come and join the community and trade with each other, with one another, their clothing. And we see that this is a huge market. This is a huge opportunity for growth. And this is a huge a gap still that's in the market, and we're trying to fill it in. So what we're creating a platform where buyers and sellers can, at very low fees, very little friction, in a secure and managed way, can trade each other their secondhand fashion, hence making the world a little bit greener and making the clothing industry a little bit more sustainable than it is right now. So what that means that we have hell a lot of shipments and hell a lot of volumes going around Europe. And as of today, actually we have more than that right now, but we have above 1 million shipments every day all across Europe. I mean the Vinted. And that means that we have a bunch of problems to solve, right? We need the shipping to be cheap, because you can't really create a secondhand fashion marketplace with expensive shipping, because, well, the items are just not really expensive, right? So you must have relatively low costs. You have to create a system where it's very easy for users to ship out an item, because that's not necessarily everybody's doing every day. So what we were doing, we were leveraging out of home delivery, because it's just significantly more sustainable, and at the same time it's significantly cheaper, the operational optimization. And that made us one of the key volume creators in Europe, and we still are like this. And we gathered world-class expertise in this segment, especially in the Pudo deliveries. And the second question is how to enhance the shipping experience for all of the users. That was something that came to us, and that once we understood what a big operation we already have running. So then Vinted Go was born. And Vinted Go is a logistics arm of Vinted Marketplace. So what we did, we leveraged our huge volumes and know-how and expertise that we gathered to launch our own service, our own logistics, our own carrier, physical carrier, where we can take control of the user journey, we can take control of unit economics, we can take control of sustainability measures there and so on, and we can build it in a way that works the best for our business. It works like this. It's actually pretty simple, especially for the people sitting there, I suppose. So we do have a network, which are drop-off and pick-up points, right? So you go to drop off locker, or any locker. You drop your T-shirt there. Then we get it into our sorting facilities. We have them in France right now, and we ship it to the one that's in Lyon, wherever. And next to that, we're connecting the cross-border solutions there as well. So if you're a person in France, where we have our locker network currently active, that means you can also trade to other countries. We're currently live in Benelux, in Italy, and in Spain, and we can do that with the third-party integrations to our sortation hubs. So essentially what Vinted Go is three main things. It's the Vinted Go network, so it's lockers and shops that we are utilizing for our operations. Then there are the actual operations. This is the man in the van, the warehouses, the sorting machines, and stuff like that. And there are the third-party integrations, all of the carriers that we're using across 19 countries, connected into one single platform. So what we see that the network bit is one of the most important right now, and we see the most value in this right now. And we see even more value in it in the future, because we believe that this is something that we can share to market as well to the rest of the public, to the rest of the companies, because we know that it's a cheaper, it's a greener solution to deliver to PUDO points. And we know that it doesn't make sense to have 5 different kind of lockers with different colors on every corner of the city. So we want to invite other companies as well to use the network that we're creating, so we could make a slight impact to their sustainability as well. Yeah, so that's what Vinted is, and that's what Vinted Go is. And now João can tell the story of building the network up until now.
Thanks. Great presentation about Vinted. Hopefully you guys know a little bit more about it now. Basically, we left at the point where Vinted Go decided to create, a smart locker network, which is really cool. And the question after was like, okay, what about the smart locker itself, right? Can't have a network without the machines. And the requirements were not common. So Vinted Go has, very small parcel sizes. If you guys ever use Vinted, you're probably shipping out things inside a plastic bag, not even a parcel box. Also, a lot of cereal boxes are used. I've seen that. I don't know why people like those. So the parcels are very small. They can be, quickly fit into a smaller compartment. So the idea was also to launch in Paris, which again is not a city with a lot of available real estate, as you can imagine. So the goal was to create a very optimized for small parcels locker. It had to be easy to install because we wanted to do this fast. It had to be easy to operate, and it had to be integrated with the entire Vinted infrastructure at the software level. Also, ideally, it would look good. It's not a bad thing. They're a fashion business in a way, so it's important to also have a good to look good. So I guess Vinted realized it takes two to tango, and they went looking, and they found us. So after that, we decided to create what we call the V-Locker. So the V-Locker, again, very optimized for the Vinted needs, small locker, small parcel size, very compact. A lot of iterations happened during, a period of maybe 8 weeks. A lot of technical drawing revisions. We released a bunch of firmware updates. We integrated new hardware components for their machines. Our developers were basically not sleeping for a few weeks, but we got things done. And the result was the V-Locker, which you can also see in our booth, by the way. I'm just having a little issue here. Okay, there we go. So the V-Locker, the first iteration at least, 47 doors, off a square meter. So one typical Euro pallet can carry 2 of these machines. They're very easy to install. We actually at some point installed 30 of these machines in a single day in Paris, with not even that many people. So basically it fit all the needs that we had. Again, the V-Locker allows drop-offs, pickups, also has the courier flows. The couriers interact through a mobile app that was developed by the Vinted Go team. It prints labels. This is just part of what we felt was a way to also improve the user experience, at least for sellers, because they don't even need to print a label. They can just get to the locker, print on spot, leave the parcel there. Integrated with the entire Vinted Go infrastructure. So again, courier app, the V-Carrier, which is a management platform, and then after developing the locker, the D-Day arrives. We had to launch. We actually launched the locker, and we placed the first locker, but we couldn't launch it, so we had to basically cover it for a few days. It wasn't a great cover, but no one was supposed to know that Vinted Go was making lockers. Eventually, we actually launched it. This is the first locker, actually. It's still live, and for a long time, it was the most used one. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but yeah, it's a great locker. So just a quick, sum up of the timeline that we had actually. So we actually signed the first, agreement officially in April. June, the first V-Locker was deployed. July, the service was live. So we think that was one of the fastest, zero to launch projects in the smart locker industry. But yeah, it was very fun. This is the flow of a drop-off, by the way. First time user, real Vinted user. A bit incisive. There you go. Done. So that was a user basically selling an item through Vinted using the lockers. 23 seconds. Probably a first time user because she was a little bit confused about the sizes. And the pickup is even faster. So it's really hard to beat the user experience here. All right. This was possible mostly due to the way we built our solution. my company Bloq.it, we created what we call an end-to-end solution. We're very software focused, and that's what basically allows us to quickly launch a product like this, customize it to the needs of the customer, and create all sorts of integrations. Right now, I think we have the most comprehensive smart locker solution in the market by far. So yeah, it's fun times ahead. Not only the software part and the product part, but also the operational part. This is something that we also like doing. Obviously, we had set up a bunch of operations in France. We actually had never placed a locker in Paris. Took us 2 weeks, a few weeks. We set up the processes, and we were able to deploy these machines, maintain them, and take care of the entire post-operational support. Yeah, we had to produce a lot of lockers. And so the goal for 2022 was basically to get 200 lockers in Paris. So still a pretty ambitious goal, but it was sort of a pilot. So we started working together. Basically, the service launched in July. We had to get 200 lockers live until the end of the year. We were able to get there by mid-November, a little bit ahead of time. Not typical. And we actually hit what we call a record of deployments when we deployed 30 lockers in a single day. That was a pretty cool achievement. Yeah, some people say there's other records, but I'm yet to see the proof. So until then, I'll take this one home. Yeah, this is actually a picture of our CTO in the Vinted warehouse before it had anything in there. So it's a pretty cool shot. And yeah, we just deployed a bunch of lockers. They're all live pictures, and there's a lot more of them now. Yeah, this is actually our network growth. Yeah, it's a pretty cool video. Yeah. So as of right now, we're actually getting close to 500 lockers. Mostly in Paris. We also have two cities, Lyon and Lille. I think we're launching a few more cities in France very soon. And so yeah, very exciting. Okay, this is how light work looks like now. Not sure if you have anything to say about environmental impact.
I mean, I mentioned already that we already know that the photos in general are significantly better for the environment, and this is a number from our study that we made and audited, and we have the proof that we can reduce the CO2 emissions by 62% if you choose Pudo deliveries versus home deliveries, and which is very significant impact for sure. So this is one of the drivers why we made it in the first place, the decision to build our own network and to go this way.
All right. And yeah, so regarding expansion, our goal is to hit roughly 2,000 machines still this year in France. It's a pretty ambitious goal, but eventually we want to keep growing the network. The latest numbers I heard was roughly 13,000 machines in France. Let's see how that one goes, but eventually we're also gonna leave the country of France and go to a few other countries in the future. So it's a pretty exciting partnership for us. In terms of our numbers, actually, again, we talked about deploying 30 lockers in a single day. Doing this production, we actually hit the goal of producing 400 lockers in a single month. This was back in March, so it was our peak. I think we're going to beat that again in Q2, probably in July, so exciting. And right now, we're at least in our platform, we're doing roughly 20,000 transactions a day. Still very little compared to what we will do once the network grows in size, but yeah, we're very excited and confident about our capacity to scale as well. So yeah, road ahead. These are basically some of the goals that we have with our partnership with Vinted. Essentially, create the largest network of smart lockers in France, launch new countries as well, and fundamentally disrupting the way C2C logistics work. And I think we're already doing that. So yeah, the more lockers, the more disruption there will be, I guess. Cool. So this is a quote that I really like. It's from Elon Musk actually, and it's pretty straightforward. If you don't make stuff, there's no stuff. So we had to get some stuff done, and we did. Yeah. Cool. That's it. Yeah. All right, Q&A time. I'm not sure how this works now. Yeah. Is there a microphone? Yeah. Can do it old school.
Do you do anything special if the buyer and the seller, they're both within the same vicinity, right?
I'm sure I can't really hear you. What?
Let's go there.
Yeah, just what?
Should I?
What were you saying? We can take the headphones as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
So
There's one there, I think.
basically, you have the microphone, but you were still shouting to us.
I know.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you do anything special if the seller and the buyer are in the same vicinity, right? Can I just drop it as the seller, and then the buyer would just come and pick up? Would there be any benefit for me?
So I missed the first part of the.
Yeah. So I think what you were asking is like if the seller.
I think I'm listening for someone else in the background there. Okay.
All right. Yeah. He was hearing a different question, so he was a bit confused.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
First time the charm, yeah.
Good. So if I'm the seller, right? And if the buyer, we're living in the same vicinity, right? Is there any benefit for me, right?
No,
No?
not really. I mean, well, there is some benefit for us. Obviously, it's easier in our operations. But essentially, what we are creating what we want to create in the platform is to create a system where it's as simple as possible and as frictionless as possible. So we're not creating these different kind of steps and different kind of pricing points where it gets confusing for you and so on. It's just a simple solution. You want to buy something, you want to sell something, you press a button, it just works. That's it. And then we figure out how to do the rest.
Hi, this is La Puerta from Keva. Great achievement. I mean, it's really amazing project that, or let's say, an amazing fact that, let's say, in the last 2 or 3 years, from nothing to, as João said, from nothing to 100, you did it so fast, and it's quite amazing. I have a little bit of confusion because at the beginning you talk about Vinted making more or less 1 million parcels or
That's true, yeah.
per day.
So-
That means, but from lockers you have around 20K per day. So you are still, let's say, it's a small portion of the total volume. From this portion, can you give us a little bit of idea how are you in terms of, let's say, utilization? You know, like for example, are you filling up the locker a day, or maybe 3/4, maybe a half? I guess this is different from location to location, but in average, how are you doing in terms of capacity, I would say?
All right. So our goal is pretty simple. We want to fill the locker on average once a day, and some of the lockers are already there, and even above that, some of the lockers are obviously not there yet. So there are still some imbalances in the network, and it's, also due to the reason that you mentioned is there's a very small fraction of our total opportunity is still in the testing, experimenting phase, and so on. So within the marketplace platform, we have over 1 million shipments per day that we have control of, and we just tapped into 20,000 a day. So there's quite a lot of lockers still to deploy to fit 1 million. And what we see is with the network effect, it becomes easier to balance out the network. The bigger the network, the more efficiently it works, the more balanced it is, and the more leverage we have over the customer decision-making process, or simply the sizing of different Popudo points and making sure they're adjusted to the potential and actual demand around that particular spot on the map.
Yeah, I must say, just working with other partners, Vinted definitely fills lockers very fast. These guys are crazy. Even when the service launched, the first few days, the lockers were just always full. Insane. Yeah.
Please prepare for your next one-to-one meeting on the stand of the sponsor.
Where's the mic guy?
Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. It's very impressive what you guys have achieved. When it comes to expansion, what countries are you considering to expand after France?
It's a bit early to say. So we decided to go to France because France is our biggest market in Vinted in general. So we simply have the most volume there, at least had at that time. Maybe changed at this point. But what we're doing there is, as mentioned, we are experimenting. We're trying the solution. We're testing it. and we haven't made any decisions yet about new countries, but well, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that at some point this should happen if it works successfully in France. But there are no lists I could share now.
Just to follow on my colleague, in terms of size for the locker, what sizes you have? I saw like a small to medium. What's the size of the medium? What are the restrictions for the packing in terms of size and weight, maybe?
So I don't remember like the exact measurements by heart, but the sizing is what we did before we launched the project is that we took the sample of I don't know, a couple million parcels that we already had in our system or other systems, and then we figured out what makes most sense to fit Vinted parcels in that, and then we just replicated that to our locker sizing. So yeah, but we currently have three different sizes. It's like super small for t-shirts, a little bit bigger for t-shirts for a size person like I am, and even bigger for shoes on average. But I don't remember the actual measurements. You can actually, I guess, check it on our platform.
Yeah, we have a booth, so if you want to go there, probably have some tape.
Measure it together.
I actually don't know it by heart either. But I must say that this approach of using data to create the locker sizing was very smart, and we're actually using a lot more data now because now we have users on the locker network and we're actually adapting the locker. So the next iterations already have different configurations, and we can actually understand how much more efficiency that will create. So it's great working like this. These guys have a lot of data. Yeah.
The interesting thing to maybe share here that at least that was really interesting for me to find out that in optimizing the slot sizes and the mix of the slots you have, there are some ways while you decrease the actual amount of unique cells while increasing the volume per day because it just fits better. So that means you can operate at a higher occupancy level in a way that's still acceptable for user experience with fewer cells but more shipments. So that's pretty fun finding, and we're implementing this now.
Because if you were to expand the lockers and potentially have more companies using them, you might have to adapt, no? Because like right now you're shipping clothing, but if tomorrow you're shipping furniture, for instance, or like smaller furniture, let's say, like you would have to adapt the size, no?
Yeah, that is true, and this is why the lockers is modular in the first place. So once we see the opportunity or the need from the market, we can add additional columns or switch around some columns and change the average mix of the sizes in the parcel.
Cool, thanks.
So I don't think we're gonna do sofas yet.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Sophie Baquet, Chief Editor of Mind Retail. I had a question about cost. What is the cost difference for you between Mondial Relay and Vinted Go?
I'm gonna answer this question.
I mean, what is
like our long-term goal obviously is to create a solution that is cheaper for us to operate. I won't gonna tell you right now our actual costs in comparison to our costs of Mondial Relay. I think that's too sensitive.
And what you told us that you are international marketplace, of course. What share of your business is cross-border? Is it a big part of your total volume, or could you give us an idea?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it differs a little bit from country to country, and it differs. It's like mature countries that are older in the marketplace have more volume within domestic transactions. So like in France, which is an old country, I think we have 85% of domestic flow, something like that, and a fraction of this is also connected to other countries. If we're talking about new countries, if it's just launched yesterday, that means there's still nothing to buy from your own country. So you start at a pretty high share of international, and then once you mature the marketplace, you transition to more domestic flows.
And in total, for the total Vinted group, how big are the cross-border volume compared to national ones?
I think at this point it should be about 20%, something like that, the international volume.
20%, okay. Thank you.
Roughly.
Hi, I was just wondering, kind of a user journey question. Do both the seller and the buyer have to opt into using the lockers? And how would that work through the app? Because let's say as a seller I wanted to, but actually for the buyer it's a 2-mile walk and actually they'd prefer it to their door. How does that work?
That's a very good question, actually. So we have some quite sophisticated systems, and this not only works with lockers, but it also works with all the other carriers that are available in the marketplace. So the decision on the particular carrier is always made by the buyer. So buyer has a bunch of options to choose from, and well, we obviously now prefer Vinted Go option. But if there is no drop-off point around the seller, then the buyer wouldn't get this option in the first place. So that means if you're based in a city that's not operational by Vinted Go and you're selling something, I couldn't buy it from you at all using the same service. And the distance is different in comparison to the density. Like in the central Paris, the distance must be pretty short for this filter to work. But if you're somewhere in very rural areas where there's simply no PUDOs around you, then the distance is longer. So it's also not a fixed number.
Okay, and just another quick one. Is there the option to be able to print the label at the locker?
Yeah. It's you can as a seller you can come to the locker with your item, print it out at there, just scan QR code.
Great, thank you.
So, Francisco, thank you for the presentation. Quite impressive, and I know how hard it is to deploy a locker network. Just 2 questions. How do you compare the satisfaction of both buyers and sellers when comparing lockers to PUDO shops? And so you've deployed a locker network, and now you're thinking of opening up. Were there any locker network before you decided to launch it your own that was already open? And if so, why did you decide to create your own?
So about the user preferences. So maybe I'll start from one step behind. So once we at Vinted, once we started pushing PUDO deliveries in general over the delivery to home, we got a lot of pushback from a lot of countries that, oh no, in all of the other countries it works, but it would never work in my country. And that was never true. Essentially, people always adopted it pretty well, and currently PUDO adoption in general is, I think, 95% of all the volumes are going to PUDOs, and in our organization. So something similar is happening in a way with old school shops versus lockers. So in the countries where it's a new thing, in the very beginning, people tend to be a little bit hesitant before they find out how it works and how much more convenient it is. And then it becomes a preferred way of shipping later down the road. And if you take into consideration countries that has old big networks and where the people around them are very much aware of them, it's always absolutely preferred way to do it. No one in Poland or in Lithuania doesn't even think about shops anymore because locker is just more convenient in long term. Talking about open networks, answering a question, we started to do this in France, and we were definitely looking into possible solutions how we could increase the pace of our growth. But we do have quite a lot of volume, and there was not an open network in France that could be big enough to make a significant dent. So that meant we had to build it ourselves.
Hey, we are huge fans of Vinted, and we are also buyer and seller. And we also represent a D2C company, and it's a pretty straightforward process of using a PUDO, and we're already doing that. But how does it work for Vinted, especially what happens if the buyer doesn't pick up the product?
If the buyer doesn't pick up the product go back to the seller, to the original PUDO point, seller send it out, and usually the seller picks it up back. If that's not happening, then well, it's you have those parcels always in all of the logistical systems. So we hold it for a couple of weeks or months. I don't remember the legislation, and you throw it away.
Thank you. I have a few questions. What's your filling rate of your PUDO? And if they are not busy, are you willing to open your PUDO to other companies? Like I think right now it's for only Vinted users, but maybe like later, instead of increasing your number of Twido, you can have a partnership with, like, for example, Decathlon, and Decathlon can use your lockers, and as on the other side, you can use our lockers to increase the number of Twido and make sure like you Twido are full. And yeah,
that's pretty much exactly what I meant when I was saying that we're happy to open the network to other companies that are in need for it, and such partnerships as you just mentioned is definitely on the table. As we're looking into that, and if we can find mutual points in a way that it works both for good for both companies, that's definitely on the table, and we're looking into sub-shops and options. Actually, we can talk afterwards. Thank you, folks, for listening to us.